Gray just pounding time off the clock. 15 seconds left in the game. Now 10 seconds left to shoot. 55 all to score. Gray still out near center court. 5 seconds to shoot. Gray, long three, no good.
Yes!
Battle for the rebound.
And he's fouled.
By Clark. Fouled by Zana.
Yes!
2 free throws coming for Gary Clark with 4.3 seconds to go as he rips down his 12th rebound of the game.
Dan, Gary Clark rebounded that ball at its apex. He caught it at the top of the square on the glass with 2 hands and got pushed from behind.
Now Gary Clark needs to deliver at the free throw line. Clark for the lead with 4.3 seconds to go. He looks calm as he stares at the rim. Now dribbles twice, puts up the shot. It is good. Cincinnati by 1, 56-55. 4.3 to go.
Welcome back. So, I'm out of town this week, and Aaron is out of town this last weekend. So we recorded an interview last week that we think you will all enjoy. We reached out to Robert Land of Houston Sports Talk podcast there in Houston to ask him some questions about, our boy Gary Clark. Hope you enjoy the interview, and make sure you check him out at HST Podcast on Twitter. And here's the interview.
So, one of 2 special guests for you tonight. We do have Robert Land, who is a host for Houston Sports Talk Podcast. You can follow that at HST Podcast. He also happens to host Locked On Texans, which follows the Houston Texans. You got 26 years in television and broadcasting, currently producing for CBS. So, anything else you want to add to that, Robert?
That sounds good. When I hear 26 years, God, I'm old. Jeez.
Well, we do thank you for taking some time out of your night to be with us here. So just real quick, kind of getting started. How excited were you about landing Gary Clark via undrafted free agency?
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't know much about him, but, it's so important for the Rockets to have somebody that has that 3-and-D capability because, after last year, they lost Trevor Ariza and Luc Mbah a Moute, and those guys are so crucial in the current NBA. Anybody that's following the NBA right now, the 3-and-D guys, they're like finding gold, and that's why you need somebody that can do the type of stuff that he was doing. And last year, Trevor Ariza and Luc Mbah a Moute were the big reasons why you felt like you could compete with Golden State and you could handle the switching defense because, Golden State, with all the weapons that they've got, you need guys that can play multiple positions defensively, and that's where somebody like Gary Clark is so valuable. I guess the thing so far is just really surprised at how comfortable he's been. I don't know about you guys, but I'm just amazed that he looks like a veteran out there.
Yeah, no, that's, I feel like, something that you get when you have a 4-year senior who does go to the NBA in the natural course setting as opposed to making the jump early. So you kind of touched on it a little bit here. What do you feel that Gary's done a better job, or who do you feel that Gary's done a better job filling in for between Luc Mbah a Moute, Trevor Ariza, both being those two-way players, or even most recently Carmelo, who, to be quite honest, once you had Gary Clark's emergence, it seems like he just didn't have a place on this team.
Yeah, and the thing with Carmelo, I don't know if he didn't have a place. I feel like he didn't have a place in playing like he wanted to play. He wanted to be a guy that was a major player that was going to be playing guaranteed 30 minutes a game. And my guess is that the Rockets just didn't think that they could do that. They couldn't promise him that with how things were going at that point. And I don't know. I sort of felt like they should have let it play out a little bit more with Carmelo and maybe not give him 30 minutes a game. Maybe, I don't know if that would have been a problem, but maybe back it up to 25 minutes a game or something like that, or 23 minutes a game. If you could get away with doing that and not, bruise his poor ego, I guess. But, that's the thing with Carmelo. I don't know what happened behind the scenes. It's hard to really know without being there. And so I think, but Gary Clark is, obviously without Gary Clark, I don't think they would have felt comfortable with walking away from Melo because Michael Carter-Williams can't shoot. I mean, they get him in the offseason, and I didn't understand it at the time. Everybody knew his problem in the NBA was that he couldn't shoot threes. He couldn't shoot from outside. And so Gary Clark made a huge difference. And you can't express how it means to have a guy that can do what Gary Clark can do for the Rockets, because he allows you to play him at either the 3 or the 4. He can play different positions. He can switch off. He can do all the stuff that we see with P.J. Tucker. And the big surprise to me as I watch him, not only is the fact that he looks like a veteran out there, but, he's somebody that not only can play defense, but he plays defense at the rim. I mean, that's something that you weren't going to get from Trevor Ariza. Blocking shots was not part of Trevor Ariza's game. And Luc Mbah a Moute, he was okay at that. He wasn't bad either, but Gary Clark has also been able to rebound too, which is big for the Rockets, because when you're playing small lineups, to have somebody that can get in there and grab a board, it's a big thing. And the fact that, and you guys know this, he played center at Cincinnati. I mean,
right.
That's something where if you're playing center, in college basketball, you're the one that people are looking at the rebound. And that's been a big part of his game too. And I guess that was a surprise to me. I was expecting, he's going to be a 3-and-D player. Hopefully he can shoot. And that's what he's done so far. He shot real well. And even though the percentage isn't exactly where you would want it at this point with the Rockets from 3, what I've noticed more than anything is his confidence. I mean, this is a guy that is a rookie in the NBA, and he's out on the floor with Chris Paul and James Harden and Eric Gordon and P.J. Tucker, and he doesn't seem to be intimidated by the moment. And I'm old enough to remember the Rockets championship years very well with Sam Cassell and Robert Horry. And Horry came in 1994,
Big shot Bob.
And he didn't play as a guy that was, he didn't play as like a rookie. He had the confidence of somebody much more than that. And everybody knows now about Robert Horry's confidence after hitting big shot after big shot. Big shot Bob had that confidence. And Sam Cassell, I mean, he walked in there like he owned the place. And, I wouldn't tell anybody that, Gary Clark, he looks like Sam Cassell, because that guy had a confidence that, nobody has in the NBA practically.
Right.
And but Gary Clark, when they throw the ball to him, the lack of hesitation in his shot, that's what's amazing to me right now as a rookie. Not just as a rookie, but early on in games 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the season.
So that I believe that comes from his mom. I remember his freshman year here in Cincinnati, he was ready to leave the team. He didn't like how Cronin yelled. He didn't feel like he was catching on to the game, and he called his mom up and said he was going to leave, and his mom said, "No, you're not. You're going to stay there. You're going to ask questions, and Coach Cronin's going to make you a better person when you ask those questions and you listen and take his advice." So I think that confidence came after his first year here in college.
What a big difference it makes to have a guy that's been around for 4 years too. I mean, I think that is a huge thing. And I go back to something that Bill Simmons brought up that was a really brilliant idea, and the NBA should have tried to incorporate this idea. And I don't know if it's something that they would even think about, but it makes a lot of sense. He said, instead of where no matter what kind of rookie you are, if you're come out as a freshman or you come out as a senior, you got to wait 5 years, to get that next contract. And what his idea was to say, look, if you come out after your freshman year of college, then you got to wait 5 years for that next contract. Mm-hmm. If you come out as a sophomore, you've got to wait 4 years. If you come out as a junior, you got to wait 3, and it goes down with each year that you stay. So you have an incentive to stay in college just because you realize, I don't have to wait necessarily that 5 years. If I come out as a junior or a senior, I don't have to wait as long, and so I can get to that bigger money that free agency allows, if I do play well early on. I mean, maybe the owners would say, oh, we don't want that. But to me, if you're in an NBA organization, it behooves you to have these guys have incentive to come out later and to invest in these guys. If they, it might only give them one more year, make them think to say one more year as a sophomore or even two as a junior, but it gives you that opportunity to have them come in a little bit more fully formed, because we see over and over again that the guys are just, they're better when they come out if they wait. If they come out, as a junior or a senior, and maybe even after their sophomore season, they look a little bit more polished, and you don't have to, send them down to the G League and wait, and maybe they never get that polish that they would need in time. Maybe the teams just don't have the patience to wait, and sometimes they can go to Europe or something like that, make some money, and maybe gain some polish there. But a lot of times, they just get caught up in the mix, and it's never the same. And that's the benefit of having a guy like Clark that's been there the whole 4 years and kind of understands what it's like to play in big moments in college. Because if you're a freshman, you might get a couple of big moments, but he's got 4 years worth of big moments.
What's the difference between Gary Clark and Markelle Fultz? I mean,
oh yeah. Well, for sure.
Another Bearcat. Lance Stevenson. He went right after his freshman year. He went into the NBA. He sat on that bench for at least 3 years, and
he was playing for the Mad Ants at one point, I believe.
Yeah, now he's finally making big numbers in the NBA. So, speaking of the team,
you just look at the Rockets. Marquise Chris is somebody that the Suns drafted, and I don't know. I don't think this guy is ever going to get there, and he looks like somebody that needs a lot more coaching. And he needs a lot more hands-on experience from what college coaches can give you. That because once you're in the NBA, Gary Clark, he's not getting a ton of this stuff because they don't practice hardly at all in the NBA. You've got to rest guys so they can have legs, so they can last the season. And especially with the Rockets, who they're planning to be playing in May and hopefully June. And if you're the Rockets, you're basing everything that you do around the fact that you got to have legs at that time of the season. We thought it came to fruition last year. Game 7, it's the Western Conference Finals, and they're like, 0 for a billion from three-point range. That's having legs at that point of the year. And the thing that hurt them right there was that their rotation got shortened, and the rotation got shortened in the playoffs because Mbah a Moute, as much as everybody nationally has said, oh, the Rockets, they're off to this slow start, and they should have signed Luke Mbah a Moute. Well, he had 2 shoulder separations in the last few months of the Rockets season. He barely played in the playoffs. He wasn't a factor at all. And then the last 20 to 25 games of the regular season might have been more. He either didn't play or he wasn't playing well because he was concerned about that shoulder. And Gary Clark, if he doesn't have a shoulder issue, then you've got him towards the end of the season. Now, the big concern with somebody like Gary Clark, a rookie, a lot of times they'll hit a rookie wall, and will they be able to keep their legs as the season goes along? But he's not a superstar. He's not considered to be somebody that they're going to have to play, barring injury, knock on wood for the Rockets. They don't have a bunch of injuries. You're not going to be playing him 30, 35 minutes a night, so that'll help him later in the season as a rookie.
Yeah, absolutely. How have the players, the veteran players, how have they been taking to Gary? Have they been taking him under his wing? People like Chris Paul, James Harden, how are they taking to Gary?
Well, I just heard that didn't Chris Paul buy him a car, like was it a Mercedes, or what was it?
Yeah, he bought a Mercedes. I saw that was that Saturday night when UC was playing UCF. That was the only good news I saw on Twitter. that Chris Paul, with his agent, I guess, had gone in and bought him a Mercedes for his birthday.
Yeah, that tells you everything you need to know. Chris Paul, that guy gets it. You hear all this BS going around that Chris Paul is not a great teammate. To me, it's one of the worst narratives in all of, the punditry these days is that, and you would hear, I also saw that from a couple of the players. He still, from what I understand, still communicates with DeAndre Jordan on a regular basis. I don't know about him and Blake Griffin. That might be a whole other deal. And,
Sure.
that also Blake Griffin, that guy was getting into fist fights with trainers, or I don't know. Blake Griffin has had, a few issues.
Yeah, he's a
but,
run-ins.
Chris Paul is super, he's very well respected and he seems to be beloved by the Rockets player. And he's done stuff both of the last 2 off seasons. He's worked, and with James Harden, they both worked at trying to develop that chemistry because they both get how much it means to have the chemistry for a team. And, it looked like there wasn't chemistry early on in the season. I don't know what all was going on. It might have been the fact that they weren't playing a bunch in the preseason. It might have been the fact that there was sort of a learning curve without having Jeff Bedzalek, who's the defensive coordinating genius that had a lot to do with how well the Rockets did last year as a defense. And, he's now back with the team, or is going to be back soon. But, I mean, when you look at early in the season, yeah, there was a little bit of concern about chemistry, but a lot of it was just that, Harden was hurt, Chris Paul was hurt, the Carmelo thing wasn't working real well, just as far as he wasn't playing well. I mean, that was hurting, and he was playing a lot of minutes like I was talking about, but also that guys weren't making shots. Eric Gordon he couldn't make a shot. I mean, I've never seen him in a slump like that as a Rocket. I mean, for as extended a period of time. He's had slumps for 3, 4, 5 games, but it seemed like it went on for 10 or 12 games before you're starting to see it coming around. I don't even know if it's there yet as we're talking on Tuesday.
Do you think Gary has a chance of getting a full-time contract instead of this 2-way contract that he has? Or because I know his time limit's coming up here pretty soon.
If I was Daryl Morey, I would be working on not just this year, but, doing something that's extended. I mean, right now, it looks like this is somebody that Daryl needs to lock up cheaply while he can. I don't know if it's something that he has to, or you're worried about, him come the off season. But, Daryl's the type that usually, especially we see this a lot with second round picks, he'll try to get them real cheaply for 4 years. And what happens is it's such a cheap contract that they can eat it if it doesn't work out and not get away, not be in big time trouble with, luxury tax or other problems. And it's all a matter of how much the players want to roll the dice, because if they roll wrong and they say, I want to stay, I'll just, hit the market sooner, or, maybe something will come along that somebody's going to see me. But then, you have no idea with injuries or whatever, or the fact that that player might just not develop like it looked like they were developing.
Right.
But, to me, Gary Clark, I mean, just everything that you see. I mean, defensively, he looks like he can play against just about any position on the floor. He's got these super long arms. I've compared him to Luol Deng. He reminds me of Deng in that he doesn't look at times like this super quick twitch guy that's going to drive around people, but, he can get off of his three-point shot. He's got a very high release point. And with his long arms, it's difficult for players to block, which that's good, and that's not going to go anywhere. His shot looks like it doesn't have a lot of extra to it. There's not a lot of stuff that can go wrong with the way his form is. So, that's a positive. I also like the fact that he just, from everything that I've heard and from you guys and from elsewhere, he's got this great background. He's a good guy. He's not a troublemaker.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody seems to like him at every level. And, I mean, that's something that makes it much easier to invest in somebody like him.
Yeah, his character is top-notch. I mean, you look at some of the people who've come out of Cincinnati, like a Lance Stevenson, and then you look at Gary, and it's just a completely different thing. There were stories last year about him visiting a girl in the hospital constantly. People on Twitter posting pictures where, all the other players are in the locker room. Pretty much the court is empty, and he's still out there taking pictures with little kids and stuff like that. It just, he's a good guy, and I think you guys got a gem in him in that aspect right there.
Yeah, it's exciting. Early on in the season with everything that was going wrong, I'm watching Gary Clark, and the immediate response was, oh wow, if they can get everything straightened out, and it looked like a total mess for a few games. But if they can get everything straightened out, I mean, this is a rotation guy that it's like you're walking along the street and, hey, look, there's $100 bill just sitting next to the gutter. What's that doing there? And that's what a Gary Clark means to a team like the Rockets that, need rotation players that can play the position that he plays and to do the things that he does on the court. Because when you're spending the money on Chris Paul and James Harden and Clint Capella, and you've got that much invested in all those guys, you can't run out and get these role players in free agency that are going to be $10, $12, $14 million. You need to find guys that are really cheap, like they got with Mbah a Moute last year. And Trevor Ariza, he was making $8 million, and for what he did and being a starter and everything that you got from him last year, that was an incredible bargain. And then you saw in the open market, he's getting paid $15 million this year, and that's not necessarily normal, but also that's the concern because the young teams might look at a guy like that and go, maybe I sign that guy and he's not as big a help as that money, but he's also a guy that's so valuable. Ariza's a guy that even at $15 million, it's only a 1-year contract. That if something goes wrong or just if they decide to do this, they can take that Ariza deal and halfway through the season, they just trade it. They can get a commodity back for it, and they're not paying the rest of that $15 million. So, I mean, that's why the Gary Clarks of the world, or what they got with Mbah a Moute last year, and with such cheap contracts. And what's Gary Clark making, like $300,000 this year?
$385.
Yeah, I think it's like $385. And I'll tell you what we were surprised about is and you've mentioned the threes, the amount of threes that he's shooting and actually making in the NBA, because we were used to him being under the boards, layups, dunks, all that. His 4 years here in Cincy, he only had 54 3-pointers, and now he has what was the number we were looking at earlier, Arian?
19, I think. Like
19, something like that. So we were real confused by that. We kind of wish we would have known that, last year.
Yeah, it might help Cincinnati a little bit, huh?
Yeah. Well, Mick, he's a defense guy. He doesn't focus on offense too much.
Yeah, that is remarkable, and I hadn't looked back at the numbers. I mean, I knew he played mostly at the 4 and 5, but in college basketball these days, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, just like it doesn't mean anything in the pros.
That's very true.
Now, it's also funny, too, you talk about the fact that he's confident with his shot. That was something that he didn't have for the first 3 years he was here. He wasn't the guy who was commanding the ball really ever until even his senior year. He wasn't the first option, especially when we had, a Jacob Evans. But it's just he wasn't even confident in shooting the ball. So it's really good to see that he hasn't even been hesitating. He gets the ball and he's just kind of a catch and shoot guy at this point.
With the Rockets, the one thing that you don't need to be able to do much with Chris Paul and James Harden and the way their offense works is he doesn't need the ball in his hands a lot, so he's not going to make necessarily the turnovers that you would have from a rookie player, but still, the decisions that I've seen him make with the ball, he seems to know where to go with the basketball when he gets it. If he's not open, here, I throw it back to James Harden in this situation, or throw it back to Chris Paul, or wait, there's P.J. Tucker open in the corner, or, there's I see Hartenstein's open underneath with the rotation or whatever. So he seems to be making smart decisions with the basketball, too. It's not just, being confident in his shot and what he's done on defense. I mean, there's just a lot of little things that you notice, if you followed the NBA for a long time and what rookies look like. I mean, he's just doing all of those things, and, it's really exciting because it's just so hard to find rookies that you can stick in the rotation that aren't lottery picks or middle round picks or something like, that usually NBA rookies, you got to put them at the back of the bench, and now they put them in the G League.
Well, that was where I was expecting him to go. I was expecting him to go to the G League. But.
Yep. Now, did you know that Gary Clark is a problem?
He's a problem how? No, I did not know that.
So when he was here at UC, he was known. There was in the days of memes and GIFs and all of that, there was a meme that repeatedly popped up on our Megatron that was Gary Clark is a problem. And the reason they called him a problem is because of everything that you're seeing, all those intangibles, again, because he wasn't a guy who was, put the ball in my hands and I'm going to go score. He was the guy who thrived in getting the blocks, getting the rebounds, getting the steals, and making sure that he was leading the team by his defense more than anything. And he's even said as much in an interview I saw last week when he said, I want to go out there and I want to be the guy who's doing everything else and cleaning everything up that that some of the other guys don't necessarily want to do.
It was a nickname that John Rothstein gave him a couple years ago during the, I think it was during the conference tournament. He just started tweeting, Gary Clark is a problem, and it just kind of stuck, which it kind of makes it funny that he went to Houston because...
Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah, let me just say something about the Houston we have a problem, and I don't expect anybody around the country to kind of get how annoying it is, but this thing has been going on for 24 years, and it's one of the most annoying things in sports because everybody has to always reference that no matter what's going on with our team. That is just it's a nonstop thing, and it's old. And I guess as a native Houstonian like myself, one of the big frustrating things is the Houston we have a problem. It derives from the movie Apollo 13,
right.
And of course the movie is depicting that mission, the Apollo 13 mission, where they had issues with a spaceship that was stuck in outer space and that had broken down.
Right.
And let me just repeat that: a spaceship in outer space had broken down. So the movie is about the greatest rescue mission maybe in the history of mankind, and instead it's like this. The phrase has become almost this joke of like every time there's a problem going on in Houston. And, I even wrote something after Hurricane Harvey about a little over a year ago, and I rarely write, too much as far as blogging. I mostly do podcasting, but it was one of those things where I just felt like writing it, and I wanted to post it as much for my friends on Facebook and my followers as much as anything about the fact that, Houston, it's just, we've always known that it's this incredible city, and it's the city of people that are so mixed. It's such a mixture of people from all over the world, but it's also this city that it's not about problems. The thing is, it's about solutions, and whether it's the solutions that we find with NASA, or we have the biggest medical center in the world, and MD Anderson, the famous cancer research hospital. I mean, this city has come up with solutions for all sorts of different things. Michael DeBakey is famous, heart surgeon, and the things that he changed the world with his heart. I mean, there's just been so many things where Houston has been a leader in finding solutions to things. So I almost, it almost would drive me crazy because I'm like, no, actually, Houston doesn't have problems. We solve them.
We have solutions.
That's our city. We solve problems.
Well,
there you go.
For whatever it's worth, he already had the nickname before he got there. But it's a good thing in Gary Clark's case.
You can rename him to the solution.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm also curious, and I don't know if he was asked this in Cincinnati after the Rockets signed him, but is he okay with being the second most famous Gary Clark in Texas?
I was going to ask you that question because I did not know about the number one most famous Gary Clark in Texas until he was actually drafted, because I was trying to Google search him and I found that. So I'm not sure that he even knew that before he went to Cincinnati or before he went to Houston.
I don't know anything about any of this.
Oh, you don't know?
Yeah, Gary Clark is a fantastic, if people out there don't know. And then there's people out there that I'm sure they're listening to this going, how do you not know who Gary Clark is? That guy's a genius. He's one of the great guitar players that around. He's been on the Grammys. He's fabulous. I'm a big fan of his, but he's not Bruno Mars or Justin Timberlake. I get it. He's not that quite the Lady Gaga or anything like that. But in music, they know him. I mean, the guy's a genius, and having the name Gary Clark is quite an honor for the Gary Clark from the University of Cincinnati.
Yeah, he was on, and this is how I know about Gary Clark, is he was on Friday Night Lights. He was playing in the auto dealership guy, Buddy Garrity's bar. And I remember Buddy Garrity going up there and saying, "Gary Clark, everyone." And I was like, wait a minute, is that the same guy?
Yeah, Gary Clark, man, the guy, he's shared the stage. This is Gary Clark Jr., the musician, with Eric Clapton and B.B. King, the Rolling Stones. It's something. If you don't know Gary Clark and you're a fan of just in general a fan of music, I'd say go find him on YouTube. Go listen to him because it's pretty cool. What he can do with the guitar is really amazing.
I have him saved on my Spotify. I listen to him in the car every once in a while.
Now, while you have us here, do you have any questions about Gary from us?
Yeah, I would just I would ask when he was at University of Cincinnati, were there ever the thought that he would come out early? Was that ever something, or it's just, he's maybe a slow developer? And I mean, why do you think they didn't, I guess, put him out at the 3-point range? It's just not in the coaches not in any of the coaches' offense that they've employed there.
No, they generally kept him underneath. We had Troy Kilpain, we had Jacob Evans, we had all those guys on the outside. So
Jaron Cumberland.
Yep. So we had, keeping him underneath the basket, it just made more sense. And like I said earlier, Mick is kind of known more for defense than he is, offense. So
it's more about the extra pass, trying to find whoever's open, than it is about everybody just kind of hanging around the 3-point line with Mick's offense. Also, with him, like I was talking about earlier, with him not being confident in the shot, wanting to be the guy with the ball in his hands and kind of being that defensive specialist, as the NBA's evolved into a 3-point league, it kind of behooved him to stay around and work on that shot. Otherwise, he wasn't ever going to make it to sticking in the NBA as a defensive stalwart.
And I think, him not leaving early and going to the NBA, I think, again, that's another byproduct of Mick Cronin. He has a very good he's very good at convincing players to stick around for all 4 years to develop their skills, so they're more, ready for the NBA. I mean, we saw that with
Jacob Evans. Even there was a lot of talk about him leaving a year before he did, and he might have actually lost some of his NBA value sticking around that extra year.
Yeah, but we talk about like Sean Kilpatrick, some of the guys who aren't really in the NBA, Justin Jackson, Troy Kilpain, who's playing in the G League,
Kyle Washington.
He does a good job of convincing guys to stick around for all 4 years.
How's his post-up game, since we haven't seen it at all here?
Yeah, I think he's had one dunk. I saw it on the Twitter sphere.
It's good. We get excited when he had the ball.
Now that's good against college players.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's good against NBA players.
That's true.
But
well, I mean, if he's playing against a player that's he's got a couple of inches on him, I mean, do you think the Rockets should feel comfortable with throwing it? I mean, what's his post-game look like? Is it a fall-away jump shot? I mean, is he using footwork to kind of get around that guy? Does he have a hook shot?
I mean, I want to say it's kind of a little bit all the above, kind of a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah. When he had the ball, he really didn't know what he was going to do. I would say if he has some inches on a guy, you should feel comfortable with him under there.
Well, yeah. I mean, the last thing I'd just say is, I mean, we are excited about him, and I mean, if you're a fan of him in Cincinnati, then you're going to see him come playoff time, assuming the Rockets don't have any injuries. I think they've got it back on track. They can just keep Chris Paul and James Harden relatively healthy the rest of the way. They should be in pretty good shape. The Western Conference, to me, it looks like there's a lot of teams that are kind of in the middle, outside of Golden State. That's the healthy Golden State, not the one that we've seen in the last week. Mm-hmm. The Steph Curry-led Golden State team with him and Durant both healthy. But
right.
I mean, I'd say you're going to see him in the playoffs be playing important minutes and regular minutes would be my guess. I mean, it's going to be James Ennis is going to continue as the starter at the 3. But, if something happens with James Ennis' health or something like that, I would assume Gary Clark is the first guy that they're going to want to stick in there, because Eric Gordon, they can start him and put him with Chris Paul and James Harden, but I'm sure they would like to keep Eric Gordon coming off the bench and giving them that offensive explosion and another ball handler coming off the bench. and Gary Clark would be the guy that they would stick in the rotation. I'll be interested to see, because I do not think the Rockets roster is solidified, so they could still make some deals, add some pieces, add some veterans. But somehow I think Gary Clark is going to be in that mix in the playoffs. I mean, unless they really surprise me and there's somebody that you're just not expecting that becomes available, Gary Clark's going to be in the mix for sure. And we're seeing a lot of Isaiah Hartenstein playing backup center to Clint Capella, and he seems to be improving. He's another rookie that's looking good and doing a nice job as he's gone along. You've seen more of the development with him over Gary Clark, but I think what's going to happen in the playoffs is it's once Capella leaves the game, the typical thing with Mike D'Antoni is he likes small ball. So even if they get another wing defender, I think Gary Clark still plays because the odd man out is whoever the backup center, and I'll put that in quotes with the Rockets because sometimes the center is a power forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Ed's already got his Gary Clark jersey
I ordered my
ordered.
jersey on Saturday. It should be here on Friday, so you guys got a new fan in me.
So he'll have it in plenty of time for playoffs.
The only danger with buying Rockets jerseys is unless it's James Harden, you never know who's going to be here for how long, because Daryl Morey is not afraid of making a deal, and you don't want to get too married to guys.
Well, it was on sale on Fanatics this weekend, so I said I had to jump on it. So, and then I had a crazy dream last night that as soon as I got it, he changed his number. So I hope that doesn't happen. But it is what it is.
Well, we do thank you.
We hope we can turn Cincinnati into like a Rockets sort of minor hub. The way I don't know if it's never going to be the way that the Rockets have done with China, but it seems like we picked up fans from Argentina when Luis Scola was here, and of course when Yao Ming was here from China, and who knows, we might have picked up some Nigerian fans with the Dikembe Mutombo, although they're all probably on the Joel Embiid bandwagon right now. But hopefully we'll get some, because since you guys do not have I don't know what the NBA team would be there, but hopefully some of them will be Rockets. But hey, this Rockets, it's a fun team to watch. I think. I mean, I hear a lot nationally. The Rockets. It's just this ISO ball and whatever. I don't know how you can't have fun watching Chris Paul and James Harden isolating and breaking down guys off the dribble. I mean, those guys are amazing to me.
They sure are.
Well, as the season progresses, don't forget you can listen to more of Robert Land. He is the host of Houston Sports Talk Podcast. You can find him at HST Podcast on Twitter, and he also hosts Locked On Texans. Robert, I got to say thank you for your time tonight. You offered a lot of insight into what's going on with the Rockets. So, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for Gary Clark.
Oh,